Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ITLS Access. We're going to be going through these slide sets to familiarize you, the provider, to being able to operate and discuss safety in and around taking care of patients who are involved in motor vehicle crashes, agricultural issues, stuff like that, but just basically getting you to thinking about mechanism of injury, scene safety when it comes to working around motor vehicle crashes, accident scenes, whether on the highway, a two-lane road, a back road, something like that. After the completion of this set, you will not be an expert in any of this material. This is just a general overview to the material. We will be using the ITLS, International Trauma Life Support 3rd Edition information that's available to you. So, this program was started by a gentleman by the name of Harvey Grant. Mr. Grant was one of those individuals throughout his years realized that gaining access to destroyed vehicles secondary to a crash or the involvement of absorbing energy, the physics behind it, realized that to safely remove patients, it took a special individual to understand the physics as well as the engineering that goes into making modern vehicles and how to use the tools. So one of the concepts that you've learned in your trauma lectures has been the platinum 10 minutes, the golden hour. So being able to go up on scene, rapidly assess your patient, take in all the information available to you while remaining safe is extremely important. And Mr. Grant unfortunately passed away in 1993, but this was one of his projects that he had worked on, as well as Jim Gargan. Okay, was one of the world's foremost authority on trench and structural collapse. But again, how to access this. This individual took it upon himself to write several curriculum based on several criteria. Now you have to realize that as you come to work in Pennsylvania, as well as the regions in Pennsylvania, all do things a little bit differently. I'm from Western Pennsylvania, where it's expected that as an EMT and paramedic, you would be well versed in all of the skills needed to become a BVRT, Basic Vehicle Rescue Technician, as well as a Special Vehicle Rescue Technician, core classes like that. All these courses are available to you later on in your career should you want to take them at the local fire academy or at the local EMS stations that do offer this stuff. But again, this is just a primer to get your head into the game of learning how to access and safely work around motor vehicle crashes. So again, thanks for everybody on that one. So this course goal, again, as I've said several times, is to provide you, the emergency personnel, with the knowledge to safely and rapidly access a motor vehicle during a collision. That is being able to access not only the driver, but any occupants from that point. And again, they talk about this golden period. They talk about the hour. We know through research that the sooner that we can get individuals out of vehicles or in a situation to get them to definitive care, whether that be a level 1 trauma center, level 2 trauma center, a tertiary care center, anything like that, specialized care, we can reduce the overall mortality of those accident victims. So we'll just go over a couple tools that you're going to need. The most important one, and I don't have a picture for this, but I want you to look at a mirror as you're taking this. Look at a reflection of yourself. The most important tool that you need to do this job is located between your ears. Okay? Really, you have to think about it. You have to think before you act. Anytime that you're doing a rescue or working anything, you should be 4 or 5 steps ahead of where you are now. Sort of like driving. You're doing 70 miles an hour. You don't need to worry about what's directly in front of you, because if you do, you're going to miss what's happening 300 yards down the road, which is quickly approaching you. So you have to have this forward thinking idea. But we'll talk about some of the actual physical tools that you do need to do the job. And again, just to review the objectives, because if I didn't cover objectives, it'll take away my teaching card. We're going to review all of our specific tools and just come up with some situations where we might need them. We're going to talk about PPE. I know this is all the rage now with with COVID-19, but we're going to talk about PPE when it comes to heavy extrication and looking at what is known as turnout gear or rescue gear. And we're going to talk about the anatomy of the passenger vehicle. So, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 issues and the shutdown of all the schools, you guys are not going to be able to go out and play on our Ops Day. And this Ops Day was designed by a friend of mine by the name of James J.T. Thomas from western side of the state. J.T. and I have taught for at least 25 years, and we were very proud to take our brand new EMTs and put them through the paces of an 8-hour day, learning a little bit of the anatomy of the car, but being able to get in there and crawl around a vehicle that is not in its normal standard position. So these are just some slides here that you would have seen in that option when we were doing this out on a lovely day. Here you can see laying here is one of our ninjas that you would extricate from the vehicle. Here you can see a vehicle that's on its roof. Everybody's standing here in the appropriate PPE, boots, ripstop jackets and pants, helmets, as well as, and I drew over here, but if you were to look at that, you would see safety glasses, as well as nobody here. Here you can see right there. That's very important. Working around vehicles does take special equipment and a special concept that you need to be aware of. Some of the equipment, if you do run with a rescue company or a fire company, one of the things that you're going to end up seeing a need for is going to be a power generator. Usually ambulances in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, unless it's a specific rescue truck, do not carry these. So if you end up having to call in rescue, these are things that you're going to find on the rescue truck. Some other things, please note that you do have inverters in your ambulances that can take these AC motored powered units and run them off of the DC power in the truck. The DC power comes from the engine. It's then sent through a transformer and becomes AC, which then runs this motor. Most of the newer tools that we're actually seeing that rescue companies are battery powered, so it's a lot easier than it used to be. Some other tools that you might end up needing or end up having to work around individuals as you come in thinking about safety will be, as you can see here, cones to mark off your working area, as well as learning how to place your vehicle. Some other things that you need in your ambulance, you will have at least 2 5-pound ABC fire extinguishers. Here's a 25-pounder, but having a fire extinguisher handy with that. Hand tools are very, very, very important. Here are a set. This is a lug nut wrench. Here are your gloves. Here are your helmets. Here's a HEPA mask. Here is what is known as a Halligan bar. All right, over here we have what are called glass masters. Here we have a small 4 to 5 pound maul. Here we have chisels. We have a 10-inch crescent wrench. We have adjustable wrenches, pry bars, crowbars. As we can see here, spare battery with a sawzall. This one runs off of electric, which you need to have the truck available. Here we have little 1 to 5 ton jacks. Here we have a high lift able to do things. These are all lubricants, which is usually just Dawn dish soap and some water. Here we have triangle notification warnings that usually start at least 300 yards behind an accident scene. We try to avoid using flares in these situations because we don't want flares near any type of gas that is leaking, and we can't guarantee that our vehicle will not be leaking at this time. Some type of carry-all bag, canvas, heavy, that you can throw in the side of your truck. And then finally, this milk crate over here is filled with a bunch of wood that we refer to as cribbing. Okay, so cribbing we'll talk a little bit more, but this is just a general overview. And if any of you have any interest in any of this, please feel free to give me a call, and I can tell you where you can get some more information, as well as if VRSR, the Volunteer Rescue Squad recognition offered by the Pennsylvania Bureau of EMS, actually gives a listing of what the minimum requirement is for an actual rescue squad. So one of these tools that we talked about here is reciprocating saw, okay, keyless chuck, very, very quick. This runs on electric, doesn't bind down, batteries don't wear out. This works very, very quick on sheet metal, as well as sticker metal. But again, as we'll talk later about anatomy of a vehicle, you have to know what you're cutting and what you're cutting into. There are some cars out there that actually have titanium rods in the roof and the vertical beams, where regardless of how much power you put behind this thing, you're going to tear it up. And again, storage for this equipment, a large heavy canvas bag you may find, or a traditional toolbox. Some cribbing. Basically, cribbing is defined as anything that will help to take the bounce out of the springs or the air of the tires. What occurs is when a motor vehicle accident happens is that vehicle is on 4 rotational donuts, i.e. the tires. We need to be able to make sure that that vehicle is stopped and it will not go anywhere. When a vehicle is on all 4s, the easiest way to do that, honestly, is to reach in, make sure the foot's on the brake, put it into park, put the emergency brake on, and turn the ignition off, and then take the keys and put them on the dashboard. That way you know that that vehicle is secure most of the time. But let's say that vehicle, you can't get into it, or there's something injured, or a wheel is broken off. So what you end up using is some type of mechanical device, in this case wood or plastic, or you can actually use a tire, a jack, or anything else like that to put between the ground and the frame of the vehicle to stop it from bouncing. You're taking the spring out of the shocks and the springs. That's what cribbing is, and there's many, many different forms of cribbing that you can find. All right. The majority and the most inexpensive is going to be cribbing. Wood cribbing like this. Here you can just see these are 4x8s that have been cut and get plywood. For very small stuff, you can take 2x4s here and cut them to various lengths, and you end up making what's known as a step chalk. And this can go in, fits various levels of vehicle, from your smaller 2-door, let's say a Honda Civic, which is just very low to the ground, whereas you get these larger monster trucks that are on the road, and you end up needing more. Okay, we don't want to have these painted, because paint, when it comes in contact with oil or antifreeze or anything, becomes very, very slippery. We want to avoid that, as well as it's an accelerant if this thing were to catch fire. But again, most people can go to Lowe's or Home Depot. They'll donate stuff, and you can do various things to them to make them easier to carry. Some people will put holes through them. Some people will put rope around them to make them easier to carry. But it's a labor and time intensive to make these, as well as they're very bulky to carry, but they're essential when you end up going on a motor vehicle crash. Cribbing setup. Cribbing should be at least 18 inches in length. Here you can see one assuming to be at least 18 inches. Most of the time we'll cut a lot of wedges because we can put a wedge together. With that, we can put, which can help bring things together a lot of times. If we look here, and I use this pen, this one right here, if we push this one from this side, we push this one from this side, these close together and make one whole piece. And we can build blocks. It's like playing with Legos when you were a kid, okay? But we don't want to stack cribbing more than 2 high in the same direction. We want to alternate. If one's going counterclockwise, make sure the other one's going counterclockwise, or if one's going this, 2 are going this way, take another one that way. And that's what is known as box cribbing. And that's what we'll talk about here. Here you can see that we're making this lattice work of box crib. We have 2 that are going this way, and then 2 going this way. But if you notice this, the one thing to realize is that you're giving yourself at least 2 to 3 inches on either side to where this doesn't slip off. You don't want this one sitting right on the end here, where the possibility with a little shift in the vehicle, this can move off. We want a nice, stable platform to where this vehicle could sit and not worry about it being broken on us. Now, cribbing is again natural, much cheaper. It's not as slippery if it gets wet. all games are off. But you can also get synthetic ones here. Here you can see a PVC, polystyrene, real heavyweight plastic. Problem I've seen with these over the years, when you get these, just note you should be wearing gloves, heavy gloves, not your nitrile gloves. You can't put your nitrile gloves underneath your heavy working gloves, but if these get wet, if these get oiled, these PVC plastic ones, what ends up happening is they're very difficult to hold because they get so slippery. Your personal PPE, this is specific type of gear. This is known as turnout gear, TOG. This not only protects you thermally, but this also protects you from metal and or cutting type surfaces. Very heavy, usually 20 to 50 pounds, depending on how much equipment is in it. You notice the helmet here, two different types. This is more of a plain rescue climbing helmet. Gives you very easy entry into vehicles. Here you have a traditional structural firefighting style helmet. This has the water runoff bib on the back end here. This personally is it's good for utility work when you're able to stand up, but if you get into the small confines of a vehicle, you'll find out that this is way too heavy and it's too big with this large epaulet on top. This gentleman here, same type of equipment here, only this is a jumpsuit style, rip resistant. Okay, this does not have any thermal protection. This is a traditional firefighting gear, which will cover everything. This just is cut protection. Doesn't provide you any thermal protection. Steel-toed boots, steel-toed planters on those, as well as reflective markings to where they can see. Please note, the reflective vests are neither flammable retardant or cut or rip retardant. They're just there so people can see us as we're working on the field. Glasses, face shield, maybe if there's the possibility of having blood splatter, but again, that's a personal decision. And then gloves. Gloves come in various types and sizes. For the work that we're doing here with the vehicle, a good heavy set of deerskin or rescue style gloves work well. Over here, this gentleman's wearing structural firefighting gloves, which have the added thermal barrier in it. Much more bulky, very difficult to take care of a patient. These are much better to go along with. Also notice in these uniforms here, there's a lot of storage spaces for gear that you may want to have. A piece of rope, a piece of webbing, a knife or something like that that goes along with that. So just to give you a little bit of anatomy of a vehicle here, we will look at a couple types. But anatomy is just like learning the anatomy of a person. Remember when we talk about left and right, anterior, posterior, dorsal, ventral, when we talk about a person, we always refer to it from the patient's left or right. Same thing holds true when we speak of a car. We have a left and we have a right, we have a front, we have a back, we have a top, we have an undercarriage. Everything is referenced from the driver's location. Now, if you were in the UK or you were in a country that has everything on the right side, then you would reference everything from that right side. But because this driver is located here in the left side, okay, you would reference the vehicle's left front if the injury was here. If you got hit here, that's the driver's left front. If it was here where I'm putting the O, that would be your driver's rear quarter panel. All right. Left front tire, LFT, left front. All right. And this would be your left rear. So things like that. Now, we also have some vertical posts in this area that we refer to as the A, the B, and the C. Now, let me see if I can change color here. See if yellow shows up here. So, the A post, the B post, and the C post, this is on the driver's side, driver A, driver B, driver C. These are the vertical, okay, showing here in the yellow, these are the vertical posts of the vehicle that typically separate the main body from the roof. And we'll see these in a couple different vehicle types. But the first one at the driver's side is always known as the A post. Then we move to the B post. Then we move to the C post. And then D if we have one, which we'll show here in a minute. D, E, F, G, all the way down to Z. Once we get past Z, a couple different regions will utilize AA, AB, AC, AD, AE. Some use A1, A2, A3, but so it's really going to be dependent on where you're working on how they define those ones beyond the normal alphabet. When we see here in the sport utility vehicle, this one here, same thing. Here's our driver right here. Our driver's going to sit right here, so everything's referred to from the driver's side. A little bit more bulky vehicle, has a lot more clearance between the ground versus than what we had back here. This is much lower to the ground. This is going to use less cribbing if we need to secure it. Whereas when we get here, we've got to get more cribbing, okay, to take the bounce out of the wheels. But again, here we can see, here's your front, here's your back, here's your left side over here. All right, on that is your right side. All right, there's your A post, your B post, and your C post, moving just right down the vehicle. But then we start getting into minivans. And again, the minivans still have the same anatomy. We have the front, we have the back, we have the left, we have the right. And again, because we are in the United States, most everybody's driving on the left side. All right. But again, here, one of the unique differences here we can fit safely 4 people. The amount of seatbelts that are in a vehicle is what the National Highway Safety Transportation Agency deems as the maximum number of individuals permitted in the vehicle. Here we have 4, but I don't know about you, but I was a teenager, used to drive a Dodge Omni or a Chevy Cavalier, and I would fit 6 or 7 of my friends into the car, and it would be a clown car. But again, here we have 4. Here, when we get into this, depending on how far this goes back, there are vehicles that are sports known as SUVs, where you get 2 front passengers, driver and a passenger, and then you get 3 in the second set, and then you can have another row of seats back here that could fit 2 to 3 people. So seriously, in this vehicle, you could fit almost 7 people. So be aware of that as you go along. And then when we get into the 4-door passenger minivan, here that's even more, as well as, you know, we have storage spaces back here. So please be mindful. Again, left front, left rear, passenger over here is our passenger side. Okay, so always reference, okay, from the drivers, left front, left rear, passenger front, passenger rear. But, you know, the front, the left and rights are reference from your patient's, your driver's locale. One thing that you don't get to see a lot is the undercarriage. Now, this is a vehicle that is at a car show where they set it up to show individuals what everything looks like. But we'll have another picture here next to you that I will share with you of a non-racing car and show you some of the stuff that's hot, that's not, that's wet, that's corrosive, that's flammable, and that can potentially move. So here we have a tire. Okay, this is on the upper end. Where would the other tire be? Would be down here. All right, with this disc brakes. Remember, these rotate. All right, these get hot. They can explode. They're filled with air down here. All right, here we have our disc brakes. They get hot. They can break off. Very, very hot. Oh, by the way, as we lifted this up, this is the driver's side right here. Here's the passenger side. It's being lifted up in that manner and rotated that way. All right. Here you can see this being a race car. They've put some shielding underneath here just to make it more aerodynamic. But under here we would have our radiator. It's hot. It leaks. It's under pressure. Here we have our engine. All right. Here we have our oil pan. Here we have our transmission, which then has a shaft, which then drives the rear wheels. Okay, so this vehicle, if it were sitting, this is not a front-wheel drive vehicle. This is a rear-wheel drive vehicle, more high performance than a front drive. All right, and as we have here, as we move down, here we can see the headers and our exhaust coming through a common catalytic converter in the muffler system. And then we have 2 mufflers down here. please realize if this is on its side, this right here can get up to 12 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. This will burn through any gear within about 2 seconds. So you need to be mindful, as well as right here we have polycarbonate gas tanks. If these were to rupture, please note how close that is to something that is going to ignite very, very easily. As we work more towards the back, again, suspension, it rotates, it gets hot, it gets under pressure. And then back here, this area right here that I'm circling right here, this is where the spare tire would be in a production model, or anything that's in the trunk. And the one thing when you start looking at trunks, think about what you carry in your vehicle every day, and especially what happens during summertime or anything else like that. But this is just a quick overview of what's going on underneath here. Please note too, on these little, someone had already written in here, remove these screws. I don't know what that is for, but if you'll notice underneath, if you ever need to crib something or use a tool, or if you get into basic vehicle rescue, special vehicle rescue, these undercarriages, these frames already have these stamped very strong places on their frame where during the production they would insert lifting devices to be able to lift this device up and off of the assembly line. So what they would end up doing is lifting up. We can use those as well as what are known as purchase points to be able to lift this or secure it to where something won't fall on someone. And again, here you can see this is what we did at Ops Day last year. Yes, I painted this vehicle. Here you can see it laying on its side. We have it cribbed on the other side to where it's safe, to where, as you can see, the student is looking. Okay, but I highlighted here with the pink orange paint stuff that is hot, stuff that is flammable, stuff that rotates, everything else like that. Here you can see, here's the transmission reservoir for transmission fluid, the oil reservoir. Here you can see some exhaust coming up. Here the transmission coming down. Because this is a junker, this has been, the drive shaft has been removed. Here you have the exhaust out here, the brakes. Okay, here you can see the fuel lines, which you couldn't see in the other ones. Fuel lines and brake lines. As well as I put out here, this is a dangerous area to be standing in front of, this is a bumper. Newer vehicles actually have crash bumpers. They're called 5-mile-an-hour bumpers. Before a airbag goes off, they will absorb approximately 5 miles per hour of energy, but they're on pistons, so this bumper, if compressed enough, can actually explode out under huge force and hit a provider. And usually when this is sitting in its normal area, it's usually right around knee height for the provider. Some buses, just a little bit of anatomy. Everything, again, is referenced from the operator's seat, the driver's seat, but much, much longer, many more passengers. This thing gets in an accident, and you can look online. These are if these get involved, you can have up to, I think, 72 students on these buses. So it's a mass casualty incident. But again, here we have the A post. Okay. Here's our B post, here's our C post, here's our D post, all the way back. All right. Now, the one thing to note, there's some different lines on here. If you're not familiar with school buses, please note this bottom line is the floor line that coincides, notice right here, with the bottom of the walking area. This seat here is the bottom of the seat, and then this third one is shoulder height. All right, but this is the most important one. If you want to know where you're at, right there, that's the floor line. All right, same thing holds true here. There's the A post, there's the B post, my apologies, I drew too soon. There's the A post, there's your B post, there's your C post, as you go all the way back. These do not have floor lines on them. All right, but that's approximately where you would see it. So again, what kind of tools do you think you could utilize to open a door or anything else like that, or to gain access from trapped patients? Please realize that in your truck you do have, depending on where you work, that's why it's very important for you to know what you have in your vehicle, what you're permitted to do by your standard SOG, standard operating guidelines, well as what you're comfortable in doing. Okay, how important is your PPE? Extremely important. If you don't go home at the end of the day, that's a loss for you. That's a loss for your family, your employer, and everything else. And then we talked about some basic anatomical terms with passenger vehicles. All right. I hope you've learned a little bit from this, and we'll be finished here with section 1, and we'll go on to section 2.